Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. We want to welcome and thank you guys for joining today's Insuring Millennials, the most underinsured generation webinar. In today's presentation, we will walk you through and focus on a few key points. I'll introduce and welcome our hosts today, Nick Chadwick, Senior Researcher at Fuel Cycle, and Vanessa Lee, Research Associate. We will go over understanding the most valuable group of consumers, engaging and winning difficult-to-reach customers, prioritizing and understanding direct channels, investing in a CX as a guard against commodification, creating a product for a non-traditional lifestyle, and finally, innovation, the next generation of insurance coverage. My name is Lisa Lopez. I'm the content specialist here at Fuel Cycle, and I'm very excited to have you all with us today. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping items. We will have a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. If you have any questions at any time throughout today's presentation, feel free to submit them to either the question or chat box inside the GoToWebinar interface. We will catalog them throughout the presentation and come back to them at the end of the presentation. Also, I want to mention, if you haven't joined us before, we have a substantial catalog of case studies, white papers, webinars, and industry resources located at fuelcycle.com under the resources section, which I encourage you to take a look at when you have time. Today's webinar should take about 30 to 35 minutes, and then we'll go into a 10 to 15-minute Q&A session. With that, I'd like to introduce our presenters. Nick Chadwick has his master's degree in sociology with an emphasis on educational research and has 4 years worth of experience working in market research. Before he came to Fuel Cycle, he worked for the Northridge Consulting Group as a research associate, working closely with the City of Los Angeles to evaluate their social service programs. As a senior research manager at Fuel Cycle, he has specialized and worked closely with insurance agencies to ensure that they are receiving valuable insights to sustain and lead in an ever-changing market. Vanessa Lee has over 3 years worth of experience in research, where she has previously worked for USC's Annenberg Innovation Lab. She does extensive work in both the qualitative and quantitative fields and has worked closely with several finance and insurance companies during her time at Fuel Cycle. So, without further introduction, I will hand this over to Vanessa, who will be starting out with introducing the most valuable group of consumers.
Thank you, Lisa, for the quick run-through on today's webinar and for introducing me and Nick as well. We have a lot to cover today, but this is going to be a very interesting topic, and I have a feeling that things are going to go by rather quickly. So, first things first, who are millennials? Broadly speaking, a millennial is a key individual who reached adulthood around the year 2000, and they're also known as Generation Y. Although millennials represent a younger purchasing population compared to previous generations, they have key differentiators that are already being seen on the market. Millennials will soon replace boomers as the largest and most valuable group of consumers, representing $200 billion in annual buying power. However, as many of you have probably either read about or seen in your own industry, millennials are purchasing big-ticket items like houses, cars, and even insurance at much lower rates. A 2015 survey found that of any generation, millennials were the least likely to be engaged and the most likely to be actively disengaged with insurance companies, citing poor customer experience, especially online, as a leading cause of their frustration. Millennials who are saddled with student debt levels that far outweigh those in previous generations, combined with stagnant wage growth, are much less likely to undertake any additional debt, even if it is something that would eventually protect their assets, like insurance. Similarly, insurance coverage for auto or homeowners insurance are of less importance to millennials, who are renting apartments and sharing cars at far higher rates than owning big-ticket items. That said, inevitably, millennials will need to purchase insurance at some point in their lives, though the customer journey and makeup of the products they'll buy will definitely look different from the traditional agent-based model that has prevailed until today. The good news is that no insurance company has really cracked the code regarding insuring millennials, and all of this can be tested within a community space like the Fuel Cycle platform. Both established insurance companies and ascending startups alike can be competitors to the punch by engaging with this younger generation, which will then lead to a massive gain in market share. So, for today's webinar, we've pulled together research from the latest market research studies, as well as proprietary insights from the Field Cycle platform to share with you the most impactful steps that insurance companies can take to motivate millennials and position themselves for success going forward. All right. The first topic that we're going to cover today is how exactly an insurance company can not only engage millennials in the market, but also get them to become loyal customers as well. As the statistic on the slide shows, no more than 1/3 of millennial customers are reportedly satisfied with any single engagement or customer experience with their insurance providers. What does this mean to the insurance industry? Simply put, millennials are effectively up for grabs to any company that can step in and sufficiently meet their expectations, which is very promising news to any company that is trying to win over the millennial market. For example, many of our insurance clients have historically conducted sentiment testing in our platform, whether through survey, discussion, or another research method, in order to understand different generations and their expectations when it comes to engagement or customer experience. So now you may be asking, what's the best way to approach this situation? First off, insurance companies should begin engaging with millennials as early as possible, even if those efforts won't provide significant returns in the near term. For example, renter's insurance. Although a relatively small revenue opportunity, it can also be a highly cost-effective way to recruit potential customers for higher margin products down the line, like medical or life coverage. Furthermore, even though younger consumers are typically averse to parental advice, when it is finally time to purchase a coverage plan, millennials are disproportionately buying from the same insurer as their parents, demonstrating that family ties have a positive influence on insurance purchasing habits and consideration. This creates an opportunity for companies who have pre-existing relationships with families of millennials, as long as they act sooner rather than later, and tap into those valuable connections before another insurance company has the opportunity to. All right, moving right along. Next, we're going to talk about specific considerations that insurance companies should think about when concerning with themselves with millennials. One of these specific considerations is to prioritize direct channels of communication. Historically speaking, the insurance agent has been the gatekeeper to purchasing an insurance product. Although agents are still critical to this process and will continue to play a key role within organizations, millennials, not surprisingly, are responding to more direct means of communication. And some of these direct channels of communication include mobile apps or online websites. They remain a significantly untapped opportunity in the insurance market. That said, millennials are more than twice as likely to buy insurance online, and more than half prefer to work directly with insurance carriers instead of going through an agent. As of now, most insurance companies continue to cling to the old model of consumer and agent interaction. For instance, of the $100 billion worth of U.S. homeowners insurance, only 6% is being purchased directly online and without the use of an agent, compared to, let's say, travel reservations, which, although employing a similar purchasing method, have a 90% booking rate online. As you can see, and as you can hear, the numbers are very disproportional. Currently, the sources that offer consumers a direct channel to insurance education and products include online comparison tools like Insure.com, which allow customers to compare the pros and cons of different plans in the area, as well as consult customer reviews to help weigh their options. Similarly, pure-play digital startups like Oscar Health have leapfrogged the agent model altogether, investing in mobile technology that meets millennials where they already are, on their smartphones. For some, the idea of an app for insurance might sound a bit strange, but let's not forget that at one point the idea of mobile banking sounded inconceivable as well. And as we all know, this has become the standard method for customers to handle their finances now. So for an insurance company to proactively engage and retain millennials, they will have to invest in several non-traditional areas, like research and development and customer intelligence, as the process of buying insurance shifts into new screens, channels, and platforms over the next decade. To add to this point, based on research conducted by our different insurance clients at Fuel Cycle, we have noticed heightened interest in new technologies and how it will be utilized by consumers, employees, prospects, and even more. It is crucial to note that this doesn't necessarily mean that agents will be irrelevant. In fact, insurers should think about these strategic ways to strengthen and repurpose their human capital, turning agents or field reps into higher-level consultants who can provide new kinds of value to the end customer. And that brings an end to my half of this webinar, and I will now pass the baton to my research manager, Nick, for the next half of this webinar.
All right, thank you, Vanessa. You bring up a lot of great points, which lead me into the next step in this process, which is the importance of investing in customer experience as a guard against commodification. And to fully understand the importance of investing in customer experience as a guard against commodification, it's important to break down what this concept means. Simply put, as consumers move into an age that greater speed and transparency allow for comfort and ease while shopping for insurance, the insurance industry will eventually face a backlash, leading to greater competition and a downward pressure on prices. If not handled correctly, these changes can threaten insurers who have traditionally competed on cost, as their margins can only withstand so much squeezing before the business model breaks down. The way that we see it, the best way that insurers can insulate and differentiate themselves from commodification is to provide value in other ways beyond price. And we cannot stress the importance of CX when it comes to millennial consumers. As the stats on the slide show, when it comes to purchasing insurance, nearly 3/4 of millennials believe that both 24/7 service, such as live chats and mobile apps, are essential services that should be offered by any provider. Providing this service to millennial customers can prove to be the difference maker that can lead to their decision to take out a policy with and remain loyal to any given provider. For example, in the past, we've done website and app testing on our Fuel Cycle platform with millennial customers of large insurance providers to see what areas of their websites can be improved and what areas they feel are working as is. Using heat map and hotspot question types in Survey Gizmo, we were able to uncover great insight that helped them shape their apps to market better to millennial clientele. And so moving forward, another important note is that although millennials are often tabbed the thrifty generation, the popularity of direct-to-consumer startups like Casper, which sells mattresses, Blue Apron, which specializes in meal kits, and Raiden, which focuses on luggage, shows that when it comes to simplicity and convenience, they're actually willing to pay a premium for these services. This isn't a surprise when you take into consideration the fact that roughly 9 in 10 consumers are willing to pay more to ensure a superior experience. And insurers who tap into the specific criteria that lead the millennial to feel their experience has been superior will inevitably lead to increased sales within this generation. And ultimately, applying greater focus and resource to your CX initiatives can also lead to greater brand loyalty and more profitable relationships over the long term. As this slide states, research shows that customers who have engaged with a brand in some way beyond checkout, whether through social, email, or online communities, spend up to 40% more than purely transactional customers. When looking at insurance specifically, engaged customers are bound to be less price sensitive and more likely to buy a wider variety of coverage plans. And it's important for insurers to grasp that unlocking these higher margin opportunities is essentially found by ignoring the race to the bottom in terms of prices. You must recognize your customers as individuals with ever-evolving needs and preferences and find new ways to provide value in their lives accordingly. And so as we've gone over throughout this webinar, millennials are reshaping the face of the consumer market with their non-traditional lifestyles. As with Gen X and Boomers before them, it's mandatory that the market shift in such a way that accommodates their unique needs to engage with and win millennials over as lifetime customers. So beyond technology usage, there are many additional examples of the differences between millennials and previous generations. For example, millennials are making different life choices than boomers, with nearly 2/3 renting or leasing many of the big ticket items such as houses or cars, that boomers have typically purchased and covered via owner's insurance. Interestingly, this disconnect has created a gap in the market where millennials are still awaiting products that cater to the ways they live and work. And in our work with insurance providers, we found the Fuel Cycle community platform, whether through the use of discussions, surveys, live chats, to be a great venue to find out exactly what makes millennials tick. Likewise, companies like Jetty, an insurance startup that launched in 2015, were able to carve out a sizable niche catered to millennials. What is unique about Jetty regarding renters insurance is that their plan from the beginning was to address unique problems and issues found in urban dwellings, which is where millennials are known to live in high numbers. Ultimately, their plan paid off as they were able to identify issues that are often overlooked by traditional plans and thus won over the millennial customer base. And so looking at the hard numbers, since 2010, investors have funneled more than $2 billion into this new breed of insurance tech companies, which generally aim to bring the simplified model of direct-to-consumer shopping to the notoriously bureaucratic process of buying insurance. Again, I cannot stress the importance of established insurance providers moving into this space. Whether through internal research or research with an outside vendor, tapping into the voice of the millennial generation is crucial. Each passing year, the old model of one-size-fits-all coverage plans is proving to be less and less effective. And likewise, as each year passes, millennials move closer and closer to their peak earning years and the years that they're most likely to invest in insurance products. As we've seen today, this is coupled with an opening in the insurance industry for a millennial-favored provider. So as we've laid out, millennials are a complex generation that can be rather tricky to engage. Not only do they have high expectations coupled with low patience, they're thrifty yet willing to pay a premium on products that have a seamless experience. The primary method that insurers can keep up with this rapidly evolving generation is to establish a direct line to the voices, thoughts, and feelings of its members. Millennials, like any generation, want to feel respected and heard, as if they're speaking to an actual human being on the other side of the desk, phone, or computer screen. Although this may seem like a daunting task, the Fuel Cycle platform has streamlined it for a handful of insurance providers who have not only uncovered fascinating insights, yet improved overall CX efforts as a result. And an example here is that we recently ran several live chats for an insurance company that asked millennials about their purchasing habits and what they expect and need from an insurance provider. The sessions went very well, and we were able to deliver the transcripts to our clients same day, which allowed them to make key decisions earlier than they would be able to had they gone with a traditional focus group provider. Likewise, a follow-up poll with the live chat attendants showed that they were more likely to conduct business with the provider due to the hands-on work that we conducted with them. Overall, this was really a win-win scenario for the insurance provider, as they not only obtained insight into the millennial market, but also made a lasting connection with many who attended. And so given the unprecedented technological advancements and cultural forces sweeping across the marketplace, the next generation of insurance buying will look extremely different from the models used to sell insurance to boomers or Gen X. Millennials are looking for insurers who can understand and support the non-traditional ways they're living, buying, and working. And since these habits and preferences are still evolving, it's crucial that insurance companies keep up and speak in a language that millennials understand. And with that, we're at the conclusion of the webinar. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to turn it back to Lisa for the Q&A portion.
Thank you so much, Nick and Vanessa. That was super informative and very interesting to hear and learn. I've got a question that has come in so far. I'm going to hand it over to Nick. It's from Jared, who says, how does an insurance agency discover what the reasons are for millennials to seek out major coverage such as life insurance?
Okay, cool. Great question. We found that many of our insurance clients like to have open discussions where they're able to ask specific questions that lead them to uncover the path to purchase for potential millennial clientele. Realistically, there are many ways to answer this question, and as we went over in the webinar, the millennial purchasing habits are constantly in flux, which leaves insurance providers with the need for continual research and interaction with this generation. As millennials move into their peak spending years, I think it will be interesting to see what the future research uncovers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. The next question is for you, Vanessa. It says, you mentioned using sentiment testing in your platform to understand different generations and their expectations when it comes to engagement or customer experience. Can you share what this means exactly and an example of that?
Sure thing. Recently, we actually ran a discussion in an insurance community with Fuel Cycle that asked members to share their thoughts on superior customer service, as well as provide examples of insurance companies that meet this level of service. Once the discussion ended, we analyzed the data by demographic variables, like age and gender, and we were also able to see if there were differences across generations. Likewise, the Fuel Cycle platform allows us to run sentiment analysis and see exactly which discussion comments are tabbed positive or negative in nature. The benefit of running this type of analysis is that we're actually able to see which insurance providers left positive, lasting impressions and which did not. And this kind of feedback can definitely provide valuable insight into the competitor market, and something that I believe a lot of our clients, further clients, will find useful as well.
Awesome. I love that. I think that's all the questions we have for now. If anyone is out there and still on the fence about whether to submit their questions, now would be the time. In the meantime, I will send any questions that come in later to our team to answer them individually if you do have any follow-up questions. So thank you so much to Nick and Vanessa for your time. We look forward to seeing you on future webinars. And really thank you to everyone who took the time to join us today.